Hey Spookaroos, it's your host Eric D. Just checking in to let you know that this is part 2 of a 2-part conversation that I had with Brian Reed, one of the hosts of the Halloween is Forever podcast, and a guy that, we just got along. Obviously, we have similar backgrounds, even though we had never met before this conversation took place. We follow each other on Instagram, and I heard a couple episodes of the podcast. He listens to my podcast, so that's how, we connected, but it's like I even say in this episode, we kind of lived parallel lives, and you're going to hear all about that. If you go back and listen to the first episode, this episode might make a little bit more sense, but basically the idea is that theoretically we are talking about Halloween episodes of sitcoms, but especially in this half of the conversation, things kind of go all over the place, and we just have a lot of fun talking about all kinds of spooky things and even a couple not so spooky things. So here we join conversation part 2 already in progress. Brian Reed from Halloween is Forever. But okay, what else about sitcom Halloween episodes?
I wrote down one other one, and it kind of bleeds into the first one about the imagery. So, you got to have some Halloween imagery. You got to, take it seriously and inject some scares. It doesn't have to be legit scary, but just like the fact that there maybe is some danger or some spookiness or whatever. And the other thing is some atmosphere, some production, some spooky production value. You know what I mean? Like, I love the idea of, hey, yeah, it's a Family Matters episode, but all of a sudden you've got some spooky music and some fog machines, right? Mm-hmm. Or hey, you've got they'll pull out a weird character actor and insert him in, with a creepy makeup on in the middle of the episode or whatever. Like, give it some spooky atmosphere, because, like you said, otherwise it's just a regular episode that just happens to be taking place around Halloween.
Yeah, and one thing that's a trope in sitcom episodes is the Halloween prank, which
Sure.
I don't really think is that much of a thing in real life. I've never known anybody.
This is so funny that you brought that up, because we just had this discussion, because in our Halloween sitcom episode, Steve picked the Community episode. I picked Stevel, the very famous Family Matters episode, and Meg, my other co-host, picked a Brooklyn Nine-Nine episode, which I really like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but it was all about a prank. And the whole thing that Steve and I, so the format of the show, if you notice too, is like we all pick one and then we argue why it's the best, but then we attack each other's and we have to defend it. And that was really our big argument against Meg's, was like, this could have been a April Fool's episode. You know what I mean?
But that it's just, it's weird to me that it's become a trope, and I guess they need to make it a Halloween thing somehow. They got to find something to do on Halloween. They want to be specifically so a prank. And I guess in some ways we do play a little bit of a prank, like we try to scare each other sometimes with our costumes or maybe a little bit of fake blood or something. But like, it was a thing on Cheers, a recurring thing. It was a recurring thing on Roseanne. It
was a huge thing on Roseanne. I almost wonder if Roseanne kind of set the bar for that. Oh my gosh, that was a pun. Roseanne set the bar.
Yeah.
Pa-cha-cha. Anyway, that was unintentional. I'm not taking credit for it, although it was a quality pun. I would say that I wonder if that was the first one, because I can't think. No, you're right. Cheers. Cheers did that too. But that was the Bar Wars episode. Is that the one you were thinking of?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a great episode. Because the other Halloween episode that comes to mind for me for Cheers is the one where Coach has the date. The woman. Is it Coach that's falling in love?
Cliff.
Oh, it's Cliff. It's Cliff Clavin. Yeah, Cliff is falling in love, and the.
Oh, go ahead.
No. And that's not a super spooky one. It's more like romantic. But there's some. It's funny because anything with that. Like that frame of Cheers, you could take the bar room in Cheers and just put one little die cut on the back wall, and it just gives me all the Halloween feels.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Very little effort, and I love it.
Well, of course, the real Cheers is in Boston. And,
yeah.
It, doesn't look like the show exactly. They made one that looked like the show, but that just closed recently.
Really?
Also, it was shit. But the real Cheers, which used to be the Bull and Finch pub, now it's actually called Cheers. is still there, and it really is like down under the big archway and everything that you see. Not archway, but what is it called? That thing
The
that
overpass.
You see. Yes, in the opening. Right downtown. So so if you ever want to get those vibes, just come to Boston sometime during Halloween.
I gotta check it out. I've been to Boston for work several times, but I've never had the foresight to plan a trip to check it out.
Yeah, they let you, if you pay $5 or $12 or something like that, you can keep your Cheers mug afterwards too. So you can take home your Cheers mug. So the pranks, that was another thing that always got me. I don't know. I feel like I had something else to say about it, but I don't remember what it was. So never mind that.
I probably got you on a tangent there, but yeah, that was the pranks thing. That is interesting because that's one thing that we kind of picked apart in Meg's episode with Brooklyn Nine-Nine is like, I get it. It's like tricks and treats and all that sort of thing. Like you're playing tricks on one another, but like a full-on elaborate prank. We didn't do that as a kid.
Yeah.
We, threw corn at people's houses and an egg. Eggs and through toilet paper and trees. It didn't really require too much planning.
Right. I remember what my point was going to be. On that Cheers episode you're talking about, Fairy Tales Come True, I believe it's called. Something like that. Yeah,
I think you're right.
It is a good episode. I like that episode, but it's only Halloween for like the first part.
Yeah.
And then Cliff is like, he made plans to see this lady who is dressed like a fairy. And, he's waiting for her at the bar, and it becomes all about him waiting for that and his friends thinking it wasn't real anyway or something. So, the first part is Halloweenish, but the second part...
Isn't he dressed? I'm trying to remember because it's been some years. He's almost dressed like one of the Musketeers or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I remember him having the kind of like pantaloon almost type of like outfit on, but it's been some time. I remember really liking that episode, but again, there's not a ton of Halloween stuff going on.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to keep you too late, but I do want to talk. I pulled up here because I was trying to remember, I've seen a shit ton of Halloween episodes. And so, and I don't remember every one in perfect detail. So I said, well, what does the internet have to say about this? So I looked up, greatest Halloween episodes, and I found a list from Time Magazine.
Okay.
And I just want to name everything that's on it. Well, maybe not everything, but I'll skip around and see if you recognize a pattern here.
No, I love it.
There's Bob's Burgers, Fortnite.
They're wonderful. Yeah.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine, season 5 Halloween episode, Halloween.
Yeah, there's a couple. One's called like Halloween. One's called like Halloween 2 or something like that.
Yeah. Cheers, actually, the episode we were just talking about, and it's called Fairy Tales Can Come True. So I was close.
There you go. Yeah.
Curb Your Enthusiasm, Trick or Treat, which is
Why
not...
can't I picture I know that show. What's the Halloween episode?
Listen, I love Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's legit probably my favorite show.
Yeah.
But that's not really a Halloween episode. It is Halloween. It's the one where the teenagers come to the door and he won't give them candy.
Yeah, not very Halloween-y.
Yeah.
I know that episode.
By the way, he gets upset. He won't give them candy because they're not even... A, they're too old, and B, they're not dressed up.
Yeah.
I had a similar situation in real life, but I handled it differently. I had some kids show up, and they weren't in costume, and they were too old, and I said, look, I understand. You're looking to get free candy, but you got to put some effort into it. And if you're not going to put it in getting your costume on, then you're going to put it in finding your goddamn candy. So I threw it out into the dark yard, and I said, it's out there, but you got to work for it.
Yeah.
So, I thought that was a pretty fair trade. And then
and you didn't even have to clean eggs off your door in the morning?
Well, so that's what my sister said, because I was still living at home at the time, and they're like, she's like, they're coming back. And I was like, I'm bigger than them. I don't give a shit. And they did not come back. So, I thought it was fair. To me, that's fair.
Yeah. I used to live in a really great trick-or-treat neighborhood. Now I live out in the country. We don't really get too many trick-or-treaters. But when I lived in Milwaukee, we had an amazing trick-or-treat neighborhood where we used to get like 300 kids. Yeah. So it was just like a steady stream of kids coming to the porch all night long. And the first couple times I kind of gave groups of kids a hard time that really weren't giving it any effort. And after a while I was like, all right, I'm going to focus on the kids who are giving it effort, you know what I mean? And just like, hey, here's your Snickers, beat it.
I get very frustrated, even with my own nieces and nephews, who I usually take trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
My nephew cannot keep a Halloween uniform, and I call them uniforms, he cannot keep a Halloween uniform on to save his life.
Yeah.
He went as Chewbacca one year, and he was just like, after one house, he was like, this mask is too hot. And then he took it off, and I'm like, what? I wouldn't, if my mom gave me a sweater to wear, I freaked out.
Yeah.
Let alone, like, if she asked me to, like, remove part of my costume.
Sure.
Like, or asked me to carry a safety light or something like that, I'd be like, I am a zombie. I am an undead creature of the night. Yeah. I don't need your sweater. I don't need your blinking pumpkin, you know?
Yeah. No, I know the feeling. I was the same way as a kid, especially if I was dressed up like a character that I really loved and you know, was a fan of. I'm like, I can't put this reflective sticker on my back. Are you insane?
It ruins the whole costume. If that's
Donatello
the case,
Donatello does not wear reflective stickers on his shell.
Yeah, and if you're so concerned about the safety, then walk with me and you wear the reflective thing, and I'll stand in front of you.
And you know what? I'm old enough to take my life in my own hands, and if I get hit by a car, then I get hit by a car.
I know the risks. I'm going for the full-size bars.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I'll see you. I'll be home before the Simpsons are on. All right? All right, what else do they have on this list? Frasier, the Halloween episode. That's the one where they all have to dress up like literary characters.
I remember that one. I maybe only saw it once. I don't have a lot of memory of it.
There's a Freaks and Geeks episode.
That's a great... The Freaks and Geeks one, if I remember, is pretty darn good.
It is good. Yeah. Friends, the one with the Halloween party.
Never been a big Friends person, frankly.
But this episode is good because, you get Courtney Cox in a catsuit when that was something worth seeing. So that was good.
Yeah.
And Phoebe don't look too bad either.
Yeah, my parents were diehard fans of that show. And this was what? When was this show like really hot? Was it mid-90s? Was it late 90s?
Yeah, mid to late 90s.
Yeah, so I was 10 to 15 years old, so I really couldn't give a crap less about Friends at the time. But yeah, that's again, I think I know some of the references and things like that, and it's a fine show, but like it wasn't a big one for me. I always wonder because, and again, I'm not a television media scholar or anything like that, but like where is the line on sitcoms? I know you have your sitcoms that are multicam versus single cam sitcoms. You have your ones that are taped on a sound stage versus in real world kind of settings. Because I think of something like my favorite, and not to bury the lead here, but like one of my favorite Halloween episodes of anything of all time is the Nickelodeon show Pete and Pete.
Good one.
The episode Halloweenies. It's Halloween. It's the most famous, one of the most famous like Nickelodeon Halloween. I mean, I adore that episode. But I would call Pete and Pete a sitcom. Is that wrong in saying?
No, it's like a kid's sitcom. Sure.
Yeah. So in that sense, so if like that's a sitcom, is Gilmore Girls a sitcom? I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
All right. Well, there was the long explanation of I don't know, but
we don't know.
Well, the next one is one I would question too, but Time didn't say that these were specifically sitcoms. That's just something we
Gotcha.
But yep. Time just said Halloween episodes. The next one they list is one I would definitely disagree with. I remember watching this one when it was on. I am a big fan of Halloween, of course. I am also a big fan of the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Me too.
And the Rocky Horror Show.
Yeah.
And Glee did an episode where they did the Rocky Horror Glee show.
Ugh.
Did not care for it.
Barf.
Yeah.
Puke and die. I never really watched Glee, but I've seen clips of that. And again, diehard fan of Rocky Horror Picture Show. And my wife and I went and seen multiple, midnight showings, and since college, it's something that I've been a huge fan of that. And I know what Glee is, and I've seen clips of it, and I know enough to know that I will not like it.
Yeah.
Well, not that I'm like, I love musicals, I'm not like,
sure.
Oh, I don't watch that type of thing, but it's just, yeah.
Well, listen, I was a musical theater guy. That's what I went to school for. I went to the Boston Conservatory as a musical theater major. But
listen, I don't want to brag, but I played a cop in The Music Man, and boy, was it a performance. I had several lines. I had a very strong Yinzer accent. It was a lot.
One of us. So, but my point is, I am someone who, in theory, would like Glee, and
sure.
And I had friends that I had gone to high school with that had I had kind of reconnected with around the time Glee started. And we used to get together when it aired, and like it was kind of our excuse to get together, have a few beers, have dinner, whatever, and watch Glee. And then one of my friends moved away, and maybe once or twice me and the other friend kind of got together, but then we kind of realized like we were only really friends with the other person, you know? Not that we didn't like each other, but just, you know, the chemistry.
Yeah, you just don't have that connection. Sure.
And then I was like, okay, well, I'll just watch Glee on my own. And I started to watch it, and I was like, wait a minute. I really don't like this. and I always said
it was a microcosm for your friendship.
Yeah, and I realized I'm like, you know, sometimes they do a song and it sounds okay and everything, but other times like this is what people who don't like musical theater, this is what they think musical theater is and why they don't like it.
I can see that.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Insufferable people who are just desperate for attention and kind of what's the word I'm looking for? I'm kind of drawing because I was going to say the kind of like, I can't even say the word glamour, but that's not it. But like the people who are like constantly wanting to be the singular person in the spotlight. The vanity of it, I guess. Yes. Vanity is the word I was looking for.
And don't get me wrong, it can be like that in real life.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's not always. And, you know, it's not all... I don't want to say too much.
The camaraderie
I'll get
of it
letters.
Is the thing that's great because I'm not anywhere nearly as, I mean, you literally were, you know, are professional at it and went to school for it and all this stuff. I was in, you know, a couple of high school productions, but I worked for a few years during college. I managed a comedy club. So, you know, performers, right?
Sure.
Similar type of scenario. But then there are the people who are there to go up and do their 10 minutes, you know, do their open mic, do whatever, and then they're there for the camaraderie and the jokes and all that sort of thing. And then there's people who are just up there because they desperately want to be the center of attention. So I can equate that.
And I have lived in both of those worlds, musical theater and stand-up comedy. And yes, I have experienced both of those types of people. All right, their next episode.
You know what? I imagine in every office across the country, those people exist too. So.
Oh yeah. I've got some drama queens in my workplace that, no matter what happens, if it happens to them, it's the most dramatic thing that has ever happened.
Sure.
All right, their next episode is Grey's Anatomy. Never seen a single episode. My niece loves it.
Same.
How I Met Your Mother, The Slutty Pumpkin, a modern classic. I would say. I haven't seen every episode, but it always gives me Cheers vibes, which I appreciate. Yeah. Always Sunny in Philadelphia, who got Dee pregnant.
So great.
Might be the only full. That's a show that everybody's like, oh, Eric, you'd love that show. I have tried to watch it. I can't get past. I think it's Charlie Day, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I can't get past his voice. It's just screechy and.
Yeah, it's very screechy. Yeah, you're right.
And I just can't.
I have been a fan of that show since day one. I remember after the first season, I bought it on DVD. Like, I have been a huge fan of It's Always Sunny for a long time. So, but I can get it. It's one of those shows that's evolved over time, and it's easy for me to love everything they do because, again, I've been there since the first season. So, but that is it's a big bar. It's the, if I recall, and it's been a couple years since I've seen that episode, there's a lot of people in really crazy costumes in a bar. And in reality, I mean, yeah, it's people dressed up in like sexy costumes, blah, 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 going out trying to get laid on Halloween type of thing. But also, they're a little bit more elaborate than a bar like Patty's Pub would see on Halloween. You know?
Yeah. The next one is Modern Family. I'm sure I did see this Halloween episode, but other than that, I don't think I've seen any episode of Modern Family.
I've seen some. I'm trying to picture a Halloween episode. I feel like Modern Family, it would be hard for me to really get spooky vibes from that show because it's such a California feel to it, and it's like going to be really hard to see the seasons and the any type of autumnal vibes, which I've used the phrase autumnal vibes twice now, but it would be hard to get that from it because it's like a Christmas episode of Modern Family. It's like it's hard to really get in the holiday spirit when it's 85 degrees outside.
Yeah, that's the problem with California. And if, you know, most things are filmed in California. It's just not a spooky. It's not that there aren't spooky things in California. There are.
Yeah.
But it's not like, I don't know. When you think of, like, I think Massachusetts is known as being an old spooky place. All of New England, really.
Certainly.
It's the oldest part of the country as it exists in its current form. And, you know, it's got a lot of history to it. It's got a lot of old buildings, that kind of thing. It's got the Fall, you know, Salem, of course. So I don't know. But then it's kind of like how Joe Bob Briggs always says, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a perfect title because every word in that means something.
Yeah.
And it means a lot more than the Vermont Chainsaw Massacre, you know? So it's like, yeah, certain states just have their vibe, you know? And Massachusetts wouldn't work as a slasher exactly, but as like a fall Halloween vibe feel. Yeah. So we got to give credit to John Carpenter and the original Halloween.
I was just about to say it.
Because, you see some palm trees every once in a while, but they actually did a really good job making it look like, you know, a place that actually has seasons.
They literally painted leaves, right? And dumped them out of bags. But you know what, though? Because it was shot in, like, you know, Pasadena or something, right?
Yeah.
And still, I will never forget the first time I saw that on, I think it was AMC. It might be TCM. Used to do that, like, pop-up movies, and it was basically a take on MTV's or VH1's pop-up video.
Which is very popular at the time for you youngsters.
Yeah, back in my day. No, but they would literally have these, like, little pop-up things, and I remember watching in college Halloween, which is my favorite movie of all time, watching it for the first time, and I really started to get the whole feel, you know, I was probably 19 years old, of, like, really, truly how much of this was, like, you know, very much a bootstrap production for the time. Now, compared to the zero budget movies people are making now, it's practically a blockbuster. But back then, it was this really, you know, low budget thing. And I remember them pointing out the palm trees and talking about how it was shot in Pasadena. And for the first time in my life, I like kind of the facade was pulled down a little bit. And I was like, oh, I'm never going to see this movie the same way again. But I still love it. It's still my favorite movie. But yeah, that was definitely a quick little moment of, I don't want to say disappointment, but yeah, the veil was lifted a little bit.
And just getting back to this list, Parks and Rec, Halloween Surprise. That's a good episode. Halloween Party, sure. The Big Proposal, sure. Stranger Things, that whole show is a good Halloween vibe for the most part. The Office is on here for your wife.
Mm-hmm. She knows every word to it, probably.
The Simpsons, specifically Treehouse of Horror 5, that is the best one. That's the one with the
Which
shinning.
one's 5?
The one with the shinning.
Oh yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah. And then, see, now this doesn't count at all. They have the Twilight Zone, The Living Doll. That's the Talkie Tina episode.
Yeah.
Great episode.
So creepy. Yeah,
great
so
episode. I mean, most of Twilight Zone is great. But it's not a Halloween episode.
Halloween?
No,
that's what
not
I'm saying.
at all.
Does it even take place at Halloween?
No, not at all.
And it's also a spooky series. That's like saying, oh, this particular episode of, you know, Creep Show or something like that, or Tales from the Crypt, you know, is a Halloween episode. No, the whole freaking series is a spooky thing.
And
you know?
and what I want to point out is that this article, I just read all the titles in there. The episode, I'll probably cut some of it out just for time's sake. But
sure.
This was called the 20 best Halloween TV episodes of all time. Now, what's the problem there? Yeah. Most of those shows were from the past 25 years. There's a couple outliers.
Even a high proportion of them were even from the last, like, 15, it felt like.
Right. So, you know, there's definitely a recent bias. So let's just go through a couple of our favorite. Now, we're not saying necessarily these are the greatest of all time, but in our opinion, these are ones that stick with us, that we can recall off the top of our head. I don't have any notes in front of me, so I'll just tell you. Well, first of all, you already heard my number one choice, and I admit that it is for sentimental reasons. Mileage may vary on it, but I think it's a very good Halloween episode. I already did an episode about it. Do watch Kate and Allie, Halloween 2. What would be one of your picks?
You know, I grew up on Roseanne. I still love Roseanne. I already mentioned my very favorite one, which is Pete and Pete, the Halloweenies episode. That's my favorite. But I got to put probably number 2 would be Stevel, Family Matters, which I already talked about. And then right after that is probably, you know, could be any probably the first one, which was 1989, which is Boo. It's just called Boo. That's the Roseanne.
Oh, Roseanne, yeah.
I think it's Roseanne's very first Halloween episode.
That the one where they do the haunted house in the house?
It is, and I think that, if I'm not mistaken, that is the one where they like really established the trick, where they walk in and like it's pretty gory. Like the fact that it was on network TV on a weeknight, and again, it probably started at 9:00 or whatever, but where Dan is like been eviscerated on the table in the kitchen, and they play this big, prank on Jackie. That I remember that scaring the hell out of me, and me just loving it as a kid.
All right, I'm going to give you one that I think is going to be unexpected. This might shock.
Okay.
This might shock you.
I'm bracing myself.
It's kind of a guilty pleasure.
Okay.
Because it's so maudlin. But Seventh Heaven has a good Halloween episode.
Okay.
With Bull from Night Court.
Oh, yeah, he's wonderful.
Yeah. The whole episode is, I forget all the daughters' names. I used to hate watch Seventh Heaven. Because, like, I was like, I don't know, these characters are kind of likable, but the dad is, like, a dick, and he's, like, they're, like, super churchy, of course, because he's a minister. I myself am not a religious person.
Neither am I.
But I don't hold that against anybody, but when it's just, like, he's just like, well, blah, blah, blah. And especially towards the end, their episodes, I didn't watch every episode or anything, but I know that towards the end they were doing, like, a musical episode, and like there was one about like violent video games and like or violent music or something like that, and I was just like, oh man. But this Halloween episode is pretty good. So I forget what it's called, but I think it's the only Halloween episode they did. It's the only one I remember. There's a pumpkin carving contest, and Lucy befriends this like man who's like the local kids think he's a monster, but he's really just kind of someone with developmental disabilities, most likely, or perhaps on the autism spectrum, as we might say today. And sure. I remember now. Now I'm remembering. He had a brain injury.
Gotcha. Okay.
And which Lucy learns because she actually talks to him, and then she kind of befriends him. And it turns out he's like, spoiler alert, a super dope pumpkin decorator. And he carves a pumpkin for Lucy, and she brings it to this contest, and she wins the contest, and then he shows up at the big dance at the end. And we're going to hold right for a second. So he shows up at the big dance at the end, and, again, people are in costumes, pumpkins, party that we actually get to go to. Sure. And then at the very end of the episode, we see the older daughter. What's her name? Justin Timberlake's wife, Jessica Biel.
Oh, yeah.
Jessica Biel.
I forgot she was even on there. Yeah.
Taking off her clothes, getting ready for her bath. Now, of course, it's very, very, very PG rated.
Subdued, yeah.
But still, at that time, that was the best look we got at her. And I appreciated it. All right, any other episodes on your end?
Yeah, I'll do one. I'll do an old one, a throwback one from the 90s, which I really loved, and also a more modern one that I really enjoy. One is, so in retrospect, not my favorite 90s sitcom in the world, but at the time, it absolutely was. And my family, me, my brother, my parents, it was appointment television, was Home Improvement. We loved Home Improvement.
Oh, yeah.
And episode 6 of season 2 was called The Haunting of Taylor House, or The Haunting of Taylor House. And it was the one where they put this big elaborate haunted house down in their basement, and the neighbors came through. And I always wanted to do that. And my kids are young, so I don't go too crazy. I mean, I decorate like a maniac and have, a big Halloween village and all this craziness. But when they get a little older, we're going to do some sort of home haunt situation, which my aunt used to do and I used to love, but they're a little too young for that now. But even then I do a little like kind of spooky, fog machine, lights, and a couple of hanging things like walkthrough. So I credit this episode with absolutely getting me on board with the idea of what will eventually be an obsession for me, and maybe be, I don't know, the end of my life or marriage. I don't know. I will eventually, I'm sure, get very into the whole home haunt thing. And I think this was the thing that inspired that in me was this episode of Home Improvement.
Yeah, they went all out.
One, yeah, the basement and And I think it was Al the one that they pulled up and his head was underneath like the what are those things called that you pull up off like a plate or a dish or something?
Yeah, I don't know what they're called, but
yeah, but that was a wonderful one. And then this one was pretty recent, and I haven't seen every episode of the show, but I genuinely really love Anthony Anderson and Blackish. They have a few good Halloween episodes, I think at least 2, and one of them is called The Purge from 2016, and it's got some really fantastic Halloween night mischief scenes in the neighborhood, and it really just reminds me of trick-or-treating, late stage trick-or-treating when you're 10, 11, maybe probably 12 years old. I think my last year was maybe when I was like, I probably went till I was 13. And it just reminds me of that. When you're a little bit of an older kid, you're out in the neighborhood, you're running around, getting into trouble. I don't know, just brought back a lot of nostalgic feelings for me when I saw that episode. So
yeah, see, the newer shows, I actually don't record episodes anymore because everything is available.
Yeah, you can I'm sure it's streaming 10 different places.
Yeah, it's not like, and I don't even end up seeing them half the time. Sometimes I do, like if they're on Hulu, I'll just type in Halloween on Hulu and watch like any episodes that come up. But yeah, I definitely don't feel.
But you know what? I had to pay like $3.99 for Steve-O recently. Come on, like give me a freaking break. All this stuff streaming, but I have to pay $3.99 for one episode of Family Matters, which I happily did. But
well, I had to do something. Yeah. I bought a bunch of episodes of Salute Your Shorts because as far as I don't know if they're available now, but for a long time anyway, they weren't available on DVD, and yet Hey Dude was. What is up with that?
Oh, come on. Listen, but you know what, Zeke, I absolutely love me some Zeke the Plumber, so
yeah,
I will stand that all day. But
so some of those things you do have to buy when you can grab them, however you can, even if it's just episode by episode.
Sure.
Another episode. This is really it's more of like a little kids kind of show, but still enjoyable. Punky Brewster had one. Now, I have talked about episodes of Punky Brewster because there are some fucked up episodes of Punky Brewster.
I have heard that Punky Brewster is a rabbit hole of sorts.
There's a 2-episode arc where she fights a demon in a cave.
Listen, you had me at fights anything in a cave, but if it's a demon, I'm definitely on board.
It's a demon, and like this is not a joke. This is a real thing that happened. I mean, kinda on Punky Brewster.
I'm writing down so many things.
It's called The Perils of Punky. It's a 2-episode storyline.
Perils, okay.
Yeah, Perils of Punky.
Gotcha.
Her friends get turned into like rock monster face things, and they like ooze green slime, and then she fights.
This sounds like one of those darker Jim Henson productions.
Yeah, she fights a demon who I think literally says, "I'm going to kill you, Punky Brewster," and it's like, what is this? And I did a whole episode about this.
I think I found my Halloween costume. I don't even know what this guy looks like, but it's what I'm going to be for Halloween this year.
We did a whole episode about these episodes. It's called The Nightmare World of Punky Brewster. That's my podcast episode about it.
I'm on it.
But there's also another one where it's all about a serial killer. And Punky's afraid that Henry is going to get killed by a serial killer. And I was hoping that in the new Punky Brewster that came out, when they launched Peacock, it's Soleil Moonfry, the same actress who played Punky Brewster. She comes back. I was hoping that it would be a little bit darker, since that's what they tend to do with remakes and stuff these days.
Sure.
And I was hoping that the plot would be that Punky finds out that her mother didn't abandon her; she was killed by the serial killer, and now he's out of jail, and it becomes Punky's mission in life to find the North Side Strangler, or whatever he was called.
Yeah, it's basically the Punisher meets Punky Brewster.
Yeah, so. That didn't happen though. That's not what the show's about. But anyway.
Well, now you have fanfic. They're right. So.
They have a Halloween episode of Punky Brewster, which is not nearly as scary as either of those 2 ones that I just mentioned. She has a neighbor that she and her little friends think is a witch, and of course it turns out that she's just a lonely, misunderstood old woman. Spoiler. And but I like one of her friends dresses up as Rambo, which I thought was pretty awesome at the time, because Rambo was in fashion back in those days.
Absolutely.
But I want to give some honorable mentions too, because sometimes they're not Halloween episodes necessarily, but they are spooky themed episodes.
Sure.
And there's a couple like that. I won't go crazy. I'll just tell you that you guys should look up. There's an episode of the Monkees where they, one of the monkeys, I think it's Peter, is, it's that old story of you're going to inherit your uncle's castle in Europe, but you got to spend the night. And then, of course, they go there.
That's literally never happened to me. Why?
I know,
Everyone
right?
has uncles with giant Gothic castles in Central Europe.
Yeah.
I have never had that happen to me.
And
it's bullshit.
Yeah, and of course they go there, and it's all monsters, and they all turn into monsters, nice. Including another trope that I've noticed in Halloween movies and Halloween specials.
Sure.
The Wolfman is always basically like everybody's little bitch.
Okay.
He's always
right.
he's the servant. Even in Ed Wood's Orgy of the Dead, he's like,
yeah.
There's a Wolfman, but he's a servant. In Hotel
That's
Transylvania,
true.
He's not a servant, but he's like, just this annoying little thing that they're like, oh, okay, Wolfman, you're gonna go smell a butt.
Being in Monster Squad though, he's kind of I think the whole idea is, and maybe and this is me just thinking out loud here, he's a little bit more not of his own, in control of his own faculties as the other monsters.
That's true, but to me, a werewolf should just be like a force of nature. He's
untamed.
Yeah, he's not going to be like Dracula's servant.
Yeah.
I
think the fact that he's a dog too.
Yeah, I know.
That's like,
but
still. Now you're a pet. I know. I get it. Because it's
so
maybe.
Hacky.
I love because I was just thinking, I just watched Monster Squad the other night, and I was kind of like, well, he's kind of like that Monster Squad, and I'm like, no, he is a little bit subdued. He is kind of like the go fetch it boy kind of character in that as well. Dracula's in charge, right? So,
and I get it. He's a dog. Fetch it. I get all that stuff. But I'm just saying, I
never even noticed that before.
Yeah, that's a trope to look out for. Also, skeletons tend to be gay, and they tend to fall apart.
Skeletons,
it's always like, oh, my bones. It's like, okay.
Listen, I'm on board with this trope. I think it's hilarious. I love it.
Yeah, I do. I do kind of like that one, but so I would say I forget what it might be, the Mad Monkees Monster Party or something like that. I forget what the title is, but it's one where they all go to a castle and meet Dracula, and they all turn into monsters. That's a good one. But there's lots of things. When I did have my TiVo, you couldn't just search Halloween, because sometimes the Halloween episode didn't necessarily take place on Halloween. So you had to look up like Haunted or things like that. So a good example is an episode of Perfect Strangers where they also spend the night in a haunted house.
Okay. Different one. I thought you were trying to talk about the Aliens one.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's one too. Yeah.
Because it's like spooky, but it's not really Halloween necessarily. Maybe it is Halloween. It's been many years since I've seen it, but I remember it involves aliens.
And Brady Bunch had a couple episodes like that. I think they did a ghost and an alien episode. They definitely did an alien one.
I don't remember the ghost one.
I could be misremembering that. They definitely had an alien one. So there's some sitcoms that never really had like a Halloween episode, but they had something that could fit into that season.
Yeah, I'll throw my honorable mention, because it's definitely not a sitcom, but I'm a big fan of old. I'm looking at on my cases of all my DVDs and VHSs all along this wall over here, and I have the entire series of the Dean Martin Variety Hour on DVD. I love old variety shows, and it's weird that I still have nostalgia for them, even though they were before I was born for the most part. But one of them that I really revisit, and listen, the quality's not great, the material is not great, but I love, for whatever reason, I really love this, which is from 1976, the Paul Lynde Halloween special.
Yeah, I knew exactly where you were going.
Paul Lynde is he's so funny and goofy, and just like so many of the jokes are topical. They don't hit today at all. Some of the material, they're really shoehorning in the fact that it is even Halloween themed, but I just have so much affection for it for some reason. It's worth a watch. It's free. It's on YouTube. I watch it every year on YouTube. It's worth a watch. It's definitely got some laughs in it. Kiss performs. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that was their first TV appearance, I believe.
Yeah. Oh, was it? I didn't
Yeah.
even know that. That's fantastic. And I'm not even a diehard Kiss fan. I appreciate. I like their aesthetic more than I like their music.
Yeah.
but I watch it every year, and it's just this really weird, awkward hodgepodge of performances.
Yeah, you are correct. It is enjoyable, and I always think of those variety shows as such a time capsule because you watch them now, and you're like, "This was on TV." Like they really thought people would want to watch this.
Yeah,
and there are moments in it that are okay, but like the whole thing where like the whole truck driver scene.
Yeah, well, that was such a unique cultural touch point for the time because truckers were so in. Everything was truckers. Everything was, you got a great big convoy rocking through. It was all those types of movies, truckers and bikers and everything. And it's Paul Lynde, which if you don't know who Paul Lynde is, his act is going to seem hideously dated. But his whole thing is he's like this, fairly, not really a delicate way to put it, but like effeminate kind of veiled gay man. Like he's clearly
eccentric. Eccentric was the word at the time.
Back in the day, they would have called him a perpetual bachelor.
Yeah.
He's gay, right? But back then in 1976, like that was the funniest thing in the world for a trucker to be gay. You know what I mean? So like the jokes are just really horribly dated, but he just is such a charming guy. He's so funny. He has this old, almost like vaudevillian performance type of thing with these big facial expressions. He's like acting to the back of the auditorium on everything, and I just love it.
Yeah, so you mentioning variety shows reminded me of one thing, and this will be the last because I feel like we could probably do this all night long.
Yeah.
But we both have lives
till the sun comes up. Yeah,
we both have lives we got to get back to. But that reminded me of the Muppet Show.
Oh yes,
classic episodes
love
of the Muppet Show. Of course, the number one for Halloween. Well, I don't know which one would be number one, but Vincent Price did a great episode, and so did Alice Cooper. They both fit well into any Halloween canon, so definitely check out the Muppet Show.
They are both worth a watch. I couldn't pick one over the other. They're both fantastic. I'm a huge Vincent Price fan, so maybe I would pick that if I absolutely had to, but they're both fantastic.
Yeah.
Love the Muppet Show.
Yeah, very good. Actually, I met Alice Cooper, and actually me and my brother, and I'm a rock and roll fan. I've sang with bands. I play a little bit of guitar. And I brought a guitar for Alice Cooper to sign at a horror convention, and my brother is not as big into music as I am, but he's really into the Muppets. So he brought a picture of Alice Cooper and, Kermit and had him sign that. And Alice Cooper was like, oh, that was a great show to be on. Kermit's a great guy. He was a lot of fun to hang out with backstage. Miss Piggy's a bitch. So I was like,
love
all
it.
right.
He had that in the hopper ready to go.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love Alice Cooper. I was I was in kind of, bands growing up and stuff like that. I always would love to have been in like a really theatrical, Alice Cooper style band. But the closest I ever got to anything spooky related band that I was in was I was the lead singer of a Misfits cover band when I was about 17. So imagine a very scrawny, lanky, dorky, acne covered kid trying to sound like Glenn Danzig at parties. I've been there.
Well,
I don't think I could have pulled off Alice Cooper's
see,
voice,
we are probably living some parallel lives because I was almost in a Misfits cover band when I was in high school. But my friend, I didn't really know the Misfits that well, and he was like, "Oh, we're gonna do this song," and it was about like I don't know the name of the song, but it was like Jacqueline Kennedy, like, now that your husband's dead, you might as well
Bullet. It's called.
Yeah, and you might as well fuck me. Basically, is the point of the song. And like we're from Massachusetts, and like that's just like I was like, I don't know if I could sing this, man. Like come on. And I was like, these are real people, and like she was still alive at the time, and
some of those things too, like when you were playing them, certainly in certain company. Boy, you would mumble those lyrics pretty hard sometimes, especially when you were 15, 16 years old.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I guess we better wrap it up there. But before we do, tell everybody where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Check out our podcast if you like spooky ooky stuff, and we talk a lot about horror movies, but we also talk about, especially this time of year, Halloween and all manner of spooky nostalgia and things like that. It's called Halloween is Forever. We're on all major podcast platforms. We have a great following over on Instagram. It's at Halloween is Forever. Started a Twitter account not too terribly long ago and gaining a lot of traction over there. It's at Hallow Forever on Twitter. Shoot us a note if you've got any ideas for episodes or anything like that. I will throw one other thing out there too. My fantastic co-hosts and good friends of mine, Steve and Meg, also have other podcasts. Steve has for those of your craft beer folks, he's got a podcast called Hop Nation USA that he's been doing for a long time, and Meg's got a really cool kind of I don't want to say self-help, but it's kind of spiritualism meets mental health issues type of podcast called The Pursuit of Unhappiness. And they are two good friends of mine. And check out their shows as well if you feel so inclined.
What a guy. Getting plugs in for everybody. Yeah, good. Oh, one more thing I want to mention. I said earlier that there were two things about Hubie Halloween, and I mentioned that one was that it felt like I was walking onto a Halloween special, which was awesome because everyone was dressed up. Most of the extras did their own costumes, by the way. And
cool.
That's why we were cast, was because they liked our costume.
Yeah.
And, some there was one guy walking around with just a bunch of hot dogs. You don't really see him in the movie. There's one shot where you can kind of see him, but he was very famous with us extras because he was just a guy wearing like a white coverall suit with a bunch of hot dogs glued to it.
Sure.
And they were like, "What is that supposed to be?" And he's like, "I don't know. The costume department just gave it to me." Like, okay.
I thought he was gonna have like a joke queued up.
No.
Whatever.
I'm sure it meant something to somebody at some time, or the costume was just like, "All right, we need something. Here we got a bunch of hot dogs. We got a coverall suit. But here we go."
We've got two things. Yeah.
But the other thing I would say about it is, I may not be the biggest fan of the movie, but at least now I can say I am in a movie with Ray Liotta and Steve Buscemi.
There you go.
So there we go.
That's a bucket list item.
Yeah. All right, everybody. You know where to find me, spookyas.com or spookyasshit.com. They both take you to the same place. That's the show's webpage. There you can find every episode, even the ones no longer available on your favorite streaming service. Find links to the social media. We are at spookyasshit on Instagram. You can join our secret closed group, the Spookaroos, on Facebook. That is for all you true blue spookaroos. That's what I call my fans, Brian. And you can discuss things without the weight of public judgment upon you. And, because if you're applying for a job or something, you don't need your prospective new employer Googling your name and seeing that you come up on this discussion thread about, Jack the Ripper or something like that, with like a lot of comments. And a lot of theories, So this way we can just kind of talk about things privately if we need to. But really, the Instagram is my main social media. And, of course, you can look for The Witchfinder this season in Salem, hopefully. All right, well, listen, man. I think that this virtual date went well. And
I think it was well. Listen, fingers crossed. Maybe I'll get a second date out of this.
Yeah. Well, listen, I like to keep people on a Rolodex because, like I said, it's really just friends and people that I like to have on here. So, obviously, you and I are kindred spirits, and probably same with Steve and Meg. So hopefully they'll be able to come by sometime, and maybe we can do this again sometime. So thanks so much for being here, Brian.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was a blast.
All right, everyone, check out Halloween is Forever, and until next time, don't be afraid.
Spooky Times is a Witchfinder production.